What is going on, everybody? Atomic Tommy here, back with our favorite customer, Jim Seuss. Back on the mic here at Most Wanted, physically in the store. You can see we are here to talk Amazing Spider-Man. You know, we've had this in the works for months,
for almost a year.
For almost a year, we've had this in the works, and we figured now is a good time because this Amazing Spider-Man run is coming to an end with issue 70, new number 1 in April. So we're gonna talk about it, the Zeb Wells Spider-Man era.
Yes.
We've both been reading the whole time. We've had many discussions in store throughout. I've talked about it on the pod many times.
We're at the point now where we probably have forgotten parts of it.
Yeah, well, after 70 issues,
Yeah.
that does happen over 2 years.
Yeah.
And what I'll say off the jump here is you have to give credit to Amazing Spider-Man for maintaining 70 issues.
Yes.
You don't see that a ton these days. It feels like runs restart all the time. You know, the most they like Moon Knight went 30 issues. That's like a lot. So to get 70, and these runs for Spider-Man typically last, I think the last Spider-Man run went about 80, 90 issues.
Well, it went over 90.
Yeah.
Because 93 was the first appearance of Chasm.
Yeah.
You know, Ben Reilly. But you can't forget Dan Slott, who has probably written more Spider-Man than anyone.
Yeah.
But he wrote it for 10 years, and they did break up his, run, into installments as well.
Yeah.
Which I never really cared for.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of the Dan Slott stuff is kind of up in the air for a lot of people anyway. Well,
it wasn't that. I just don't like, now what run, number 4, which run is this with?
Yeah. And, towards the beginning of like this run specifically, you kind of had a little bit of that because they launched, I think it was Slott that was writing it, like just a regular Spider-Man title. That's where Spider-Boy first appeared in that. And it was one of those things where you didn't really know where it, because like everything's kind of supposed to coincide, but you never really kind of knew where it was happening.
Yeah.
And there's like now, there's not a ton. It's Amazing Spider-Man and then Spectacular Spider-Man. That's really all Spider-Man we got going on right now. But the beginning of that point, there was all of this Spider-Man happening. But let's just jump. I want to jump right in here. Let's just do like general 70 issues. Zeb Wells wrote 60 of those 70 issues. Right. What do you think are the highlights? We'll talk a little bit specifically about the bigger arcs, but for now, the highlights.
The highlights. Oof. I really liked how they handled Tombstone.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I mean, they really made him a very interesting villain.
Yeah.
And very sympathetic with him too.
Yeah.
Especially with gang war with his daughter and everything as well. He became a very sympathetic character.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could wind up relating with him to some degree.
And I think the Tombstones, I was going to bring up the Tombstone stuff too. And I think this run in particular, there's a big, very clear difference between what may be editorial and what may be like Zeb wanted to do. And I think the Tombstone thing was really something Zeb Wells wanted to do, because that's something that was really good, really consistent, and followed through. I mean, Tombstone was, I think he was maybe in the first issue, if not the first couple, and I think he was in the final issue. So it was an arc. It was a complete story.
Even the Norman story. Yeah. That was, I think, Zeb as well. It wasn't a mandate by editorial. I think that was like, hey, how about if we make Norman sane and a good guy, which they did previously, but he really delved into it and made Norman a likable character.
And I really liked, one of my highlights is the Gold Goblin Norman Osborn stuff. I really liked a lot of that. And again, once you got past issue 26 to 30, you didn't see any of that. Now, at that point, they were kind of building up towards like the Green Goblin thing, but there was not enough Gold Goblin. There was a little mini series with Gold Goblin back in like 2022 or something like that, which I enjoyed. I don't even think we have any of it still, but I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed every time he showed up. I really liked how they kind of worked in, just his regrets and his grief.
Right.
I thought that was handled very well.
The moment where the storyline where Gwen Stacy's ghost came back.
Yeah, that was for Judgment Day.
Judgment Day.
Judgment Day.
For a moment. And they said, here you go, Peter. You have this, as one last gift.
Yeah.
And Norman's reaction of guilt was even worse than Peter's.
Yeah.
Peter is such a guilt. Move on from the guilt. Move on from the guilt, Peter.
Yeah.
But I really liked that moment. I think it was one of the best moments.
Yeah.
And also another moment too. And let's talk about the kick in the pants that no fan likes, or the MJ fans don't like. Paul.
We gotta talk about Paul. Paul's gonna come up at some point.
Oh, he is. And there was a moment, and I know a lot of people complained about John Romita's artwork.
Yeah.
I still think he is by far one of the best Spider-Man artists in modern times. He has drawn Spider-Man more than his father has. And his father was, cream of the crop. The same thing with Steve Ditko.
Yeah.
But there was a moment where, Norman calls MJ to come to the office while Peter was there. And she appears, and Peter didn't know. And the look on his face that was just blank, essentially.
Yeah.
And to somebody who wasn't, not just kind of reading it and just glancing through the book, would think, oh, that's really bad art. When you put it all together, the expression on his face and everything was his reaction of MJ being there. It's like, you've ripped out my heart, and I don't need you here right now.
Yeah.
And he's just trying to suppress all of his emotions.
Yeah. Was
such well done by the art.
And that's a good segue into talking about really the first big, of the three really first big arcs in this run, because over the 60 issues that Zeb Wells wrote, there's really three big points.
Yeah.
There's the first 26 issues, which is, I don't really know if there's really like one name or one word to give to it, but it's where Peter and MJ basically break up. MJ's in the dimension, and then they fight the, what's his name?
Yeah,
Robin?
the flashbacks.
Robin, yeah.
Or
Raben. So I don't know, something like that. And then the next big one is Gang War, and then the finale, really the finale, I think, is the finale, the big finale arc, is the Green Goblin return. And then Zeb was able to wrap a lot of stuff up with Tombstone after that in the last few issues. But talking about the Gwen Stacy stuff and that MJ stuff is a good segue into talking about the first big arc. Which the first thing I'd like to say about that for this is just, that's almost a run in itself.
Well, yeah, because the original advertisement for this run was, it was a big crater, and it was like, what did Peter do?
Yeah.
And everybody was all upset about Peter, in the very beginning, because a lot of it, that story was all flashback.
Yeah.
What was going on.
Yeah.
And, everybody was all upset with Peter because of that.
And, it was a slow burn. It was a slow burn. I mean, they start out with the crater. Yep. The first page is Peter in that crater.
Right.
And for really until issue 20, you don't really know what happened.
Right.
It's a slow burn. They build it up. Peter is angry. He's super depressed. The Fantastic Four hate him. Captain America's everybody's mad at him for some reason, and you don't find out why. And that's really where the side characters are highlighted. The Norman, even Kamala Khan was in there for a little while.
Yep, and she was nice and refreshing as well.
Yeah,
to be part of that book.
And she kind of had an interesting role where she was kind of there to spy on Norman Osborn.
But she was also the intern.
And she was also the intern. But really, once you get to issue 20 is where things get a little rocky, because you have Paul, and my thing on Paul, I don't really care that much. I'm not a live or die by Peter's love interest guy. I get it's an important part of his character, but really I don't care about Paul. I don't care if it's MJ or if it's Gwen or if it's Black Cat or if it's some new. I really don't care. And I think there's other people that just kind of make a big deal out of it.
It's time for him to move on.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a single character. They got divorced.
Yeah,
all due to Mephisto and so on, which was a great storyline. And I know people are pining, but in reality, folks, does it happen that way? No, it doesn't. People move on.
Yeah,
you get angry with your ex, you move on, you become You can become friends with them again. Yeah, but it's never the same,
right?
And so it's just an adult thing. You just move on.
Yeah,
and I would like to see that happen.
Yeah.
And Peter is doing it, and MJ is doing it as well, except for Venom.
Except for Venom, but I guess my problem isn't so much in the story. Like the writers, editors, they're always looking for something kind of new to bring back or something slightly different to twist or do because it's been like 65 years of Spider-Man. Everything's kind of been done at this point. So my problem is not really so much in the story. It's more so in the fact that it took 25 issues to get there. I'm not sure if the payoff was necessarily as powerful as they intended.
But there were cool moments.
There were cool moments.
The moment with Captain America.
Yeah.
And Peter just sticks his hand out, grabs a hold of the shield, and just holding it and smashes Captain America with it, showing how much stronger.
Yeah.
That's the thing that they don't portray.
Right.
Peter is being that strong to push around other superheroes.
The biggest part of this first 30 issues really is in is in kind of the filler part.
Yeah.
The 20 issues is the finale. It explains everything. Yep. Give or take there. I want to talk in a second a little bit about what they did with Kamala Khan because that's another important thing that they did here. But I really also enjoyed a lot of the little stuff that happened in those 20 issues. I mean, the Vulture, he had a fight with the Vulture. There's a lot of super depressing moments in those first 20 issues where you just see Peter's defeated. I know there's a point with Tombstone where Tombstone's torturing him.
Oh God!
And he's
beat the living hell out of him.
He beat the crap out of him, and he was just screaming for his life. It was a really serious moment. It
was wonderful.
It was a really almost jarring moment for a Spider-Man comic. Yeah. You didn't see a whole lot of that out of the Ryan Otley, artwork that era, which I love Ryan Otley, don't disrespect there, but it was really different. And his relationship with Norman, Norman almost being this sympathetic mentor, the one person that's not judging him for his actions. There a little mentioned Easter egg. There was a new suit in there. And issue 8 for 3 issues.
Yeah, it came and went. Again, I'm sick of that.
Yeah.
I wish they would have kept it because it was interesting.
Yeah, it was a high tech, you know?
It was again kind of like the armor suit that he had. But it was high tech. It also had that glider.
Yeah.
Norman made him a glider.
And I remember when
I liked that.
I remember when that came out, they hyped the crap out of that suit all over in promos. Every time you turn a page in an X-Men book or a little mini series, there'd be an ad for the new suit, and it was there for 3 issues.
Yeah.
And then it was back to the normal.
That's the negative of what happened. But again, that's not Zub.
Yeah.
That wasn't him. And that was editorial.
And honestly, the editorial stuff gets worse as it goes on. Right now in the beginning, there was some editorial, influx. A lot of the Kamala Khan stuff was editorial. A lot of the suit stuff, but a lot of this filler, the Tombstone setup, the Norman stuff. Zeb was writing his story for a while, and I want to move now to the Kamala Khan stuff because that's I think really the big talking point of this first 30 issues isn't the Dimension stuff, isn't Paul. It's what they did with Kamala Khan.
It was her role in that was, I thought, well done.
Yeah.
And I think X-Men ruined it.
Yeah. Some people, now if you don't know what we're referring, I'll catch it up real quick. Basically, Kamala Khan in the movies, in the show, was brought in as a mutant, as an X-Men character. They skipped the Inhuman stuff because in the comics, Kamala Khan's traditionally an Inhuman. They skipped all that and just made her a mutant in the show. Marvel wanted to change that in the comics. So in Amazing Spider-Man, that switch happens where they kill off Kamala Khan, and this happens I think in issue 25. They kill off Kamala Khan, and in like a one-shot spin-off, she's brought back, and she's basically an X-Men now. And you kind of realize when you're reading that, welcome to the point of the first.
Yeah.
Welcome to the big editorial point of the first 30 issues. And again, I liked Kamala's role. I think she fit nicely in the story as a side character to Spider-Man and to this kind of universe or like sub-world with Spider-Man. I think she fit nicely there. But you kind of realize that this was really the point of it all when they kill off Kamala Khan just to bring her back and rewrite her as a mutant. And that in itself, I don't really like. I think it's perfectly fine that the movie do something different than the show or than the comics, or the show does something different than the comics. I don't. There are people that like it as a mutant. I just feel like kind of erasing history of the character there when you do that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. But the only problem that I had with it was issue death. Next month, Memorial comic comes out. A month or two later, they bring her back in X-Men.
That's a good.
That was the
point.
worst part. Was like, why didn't you wait a year? Because the X-Men storyline ran. A couple of years. After that, so they could have just brought her back later. And and let everyone grieve. And then just bring her back with no fanfare. No I'm tired of all. I know it's for sales. Right. You get. I miss the surprises.
And a point to that to build that a little bit. They announced and teased her return before.
I remember you getting angry about that.
Was even out.
You were like all pissed off.
They killed Kamala Khan off, and it was leaked, but not everybody knows the leaks, right? I don't count the leaks. Before the Memorial issue came out, because there were two. There was issue 26 of Amazing Spider-Man, which was the follow-up, and then there was like a whole one-shot. I think it was either before both of those came out or the Kamala one-shot, they announced her X-Men miniseries. And that kind of pissed me off a little bit, because not only are you just kind of subverting these 25 issues of Amazing Spider-Man just to make this kind of inter-universal change, this big change, but you're also completely destroying any surprise or anything around it. This was really the first time editorial majorly hit this run in a negative way.
And right now, because I in a way, kind of forgotten, about the death. And how they did it was emotional. I remember getting slightly emotional over a comic, on her death. But it was like, you thought it was MJ.
Yeah.
The way they did it and everything, the pacing and the art.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing.
Yeah.
As a multimedia, it's just because, again, you thought it was Mary Jane getting killed.
Right.
And, it was Kamala, doing something that she hasn't done in a long time.
Right. And, again, it's just, I don't, on a general scale, I don't have a problem with Zeb Wells, really. I mean, a lot of people were calling for his head on the title, like they wanted him gone. I think that's very extreme reaction. Because,
again, they blame the writer for not the editorial.
But it's hard to, and I'm not saying Wells didn't do anything wrong or didn't do anything stupid, but it's just one of those things where what really kills this run, the reason why I think this might be one of the most negatively received Spider-Man runs ever, is because of the decisions made by editorial.
Yeah.
And now...
No.
Go ahead.
No, that was the Clone Saga.
Yeah. You forget about the Clone Saga sometimes.
Yes.
But Moving on now from those first 25 issues that we've covered it in depth. That's really the highlights.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot. It's 25 issues, but not all of it's super relevant. Moving on now, there's not a whole lot to talk about until Gang War. Honestly, there's like Doc Ock kind of runs around a little bit, and again, those little like mini stories is really Zeb Wells being able to write Spider-Man, and he writes the villains really well. I think that's an important point.
He does.
How he writes each member of the Sinister Six is really nice. You're always entertained, and then there's just before Gang War, there's like a retelling of Kraven's Last Hunt.
Yes.
Which is kind of an important thing to talk about because it's really the catalyst for the Green Goblin stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's where Norman gets the sins back into him.
Yeah, because we get the Goblin Queen.
Yeah. Kraven, I'm a little foggy on the details, but essentially I think what happened is Kraven and the Goblin Queen wanted to...
Well, there's like two... Yeah, I mean, because we also have...
Yeah.
Madeline Pryor.
Yeah.
Who's also the Goblin.
Well, it wasn't I don't think it was Madeline Pryor. It was
No, it was
the other one.
Yes.
They wanted to, I think, bring the sins back to Norman. And essentially what happened there is kind of a prelude where Peter gets them for a little while. Peter becomes kind of like goblin-fied, a little like mini, I guess, where he just kind of turns evil for a couple of issues. And he puts on the black suit again, and he dangles Paul off a bridge, which everybody rejoiced, I guess, for that. But my thing is, again, he writes Kraven so well. It's a nice retelling. Yep. It's deep. It's thought out. And
the movie was supposed to come out.
Yeah.
At that point, in time.
That's an important piece too.
Yeah. So that was editorial saying, "Hey, we need to insert Kraven."
Yeah. And it's
about this issue.
It's not the first time they've retold a Kraven's Last Hunt, right? They do kind of all the time. But I enjoyed it. It's always nice to kind of get Peter like back into the black suit once a run, right? But then after that, you get into Gang War, which I'm gonna just full out right away. I did not like Gang War at all. It was just kind of slop. Like it was just kind of like filler slop.
It was. And it was also a big event.
Yeah.
Dealing with Spider-Man to make sales.
Yeah. Editorial.
Yep.
Editorial event.
Again, we had Elektra as Daredevil. We had Spider-Woman, which is one of my... I still love her character. Mm-hmm. And we had Luke Cage, which was running around doing stuff as... and I'm like, why are you doing...
Mayor, yeah,
you're the mayor. You don't need to do this.
Yeah, it was basically taking...
You have Avengers on personal call.
It was one of Marvel's like mini events where they kind of got all of, like, I say mini, but it was a title wide event between multiple titles. But really, it was taking all of like the New York heroes and kind of crossing them over, which, okay, I guess it didn't. There was a lot of gang war happening, but by the end, it was Spider-Man that cleaned it all up anyway. Yeah. So it all felt pointless by the end. It felt really forced and just it really just stopped the run abruptly. Like everything going on, all the stuff with like Norman that was building, all the stuff Peter was going through, the aftermath, dealing with like the MJ and his relationship stuff, just stopped dead for like an event.
Yep.
Out of the blue. And it really wasn't even that interesting of an event. She-Hulk was in it too. But I like Elektra Daredevil, but she didn't do anything. She was just she none of it. At the end of the day, Gang War, there's really not a lot to say about it other than it really just was not that good.
No. I did like some of the treatment with Tombstone, though.
Yeah.
I mean, Tombstone was still if he was a character in a movie, he would be chewing up every scene that he's in.
Yeah.
And I liked the conflict between him and his daughter. But again, it became a little bit comic book ridiculous. Yeah. But again, that's okay. It's a comic book.
Right.
Fictional stories,
Fictional
folks.
stories, yeah. Again, the Tombstone is probably the only character, I think, with a complete story.
Right.
With a followed-through story. And then, after moving on from Gang War now, because, again, not a lot to say, let's talk now about the big problem I have with this whole thing. The run, the arc that exemplifies every problem this run has. And that's really issue like 50 to like 56, the Green Goblin stuff.
Oh.
Where Norman comes back.
Yep.
That's really everything in between issue after Gang War, everything in between then. Again, there's Tombstone follow-up. We've talked about Tombstone already. But beyond that, it's a lot of just filler. Some decent filler, but nothing too important or too relevant to talk about. Again, a lot of that filler is just Zeb Wells being able to do stuff, and he does stuff pretty well. But then we get into the big Green Goblin stuff, and I'll let you kind of talk about that first.
Oh, I remember you were like, oh God, wait until you read this. I've read this.
And they're set up on that too. We were talking leading up to it about how much we don't want Norman to be the Green Goblin again.
Yeah.
And because it's an editorial uproot of everything they did with that character. They redeemed him. He went on a whole arc. It was great. We talked about it earlier. And they just undo it completely.
Yep.
Completely.
It's just flushing it down the toilet.
Yeah.
And I get it. I know characters evolve and change.
Yeah.
But don't throw them back.
Yeah.
Have them propel forward.
And this isn't even. It's one thing to take a step back. It's another thing to just be like, again, this is editorial. We need Green Goblin. Put Green Goblin in here, and that's what happened. And Spider-Man becomes the Green Goblin. I was not that enamored by it. I was not that into it. It's just I really just didn't. Well, we have it up here,
right there.
We have it right here behind me. You can see it right there. I really just hate everything that arc stands for, because it's just taking everybody and completely moving it back. Peter, all of the redemption that Peter was going on post the issue 25, post the MJ stuff, undone. He's a villain now. Yeah. All the redemption that Norman went on, undone. He's a villain now. Yeah.
But to leading into that though, I still like that moment with Craven. Did the job, and then things changed, and he was like that, oh crap moment. Yeah. That was the thing I didn't want to do. Yeah, right. After hindsight. Yeah. And he goes, oh, let's get out of here. Yeah. And that was kind of nice. I liked that. I think that was all Zeb going like, oh, okay. Yeah. We did the catalyst.
He does a great job with the villains, everything with the Green Goblin stuff, again, it went on for so long. Yeah. Peter was the Spider-Man Goblin for like 3 issues. Norman was then the Green Goblin again, and you didn't see. And then Norman was gone after that. Norman didn't have anything after that. Again, it's everything that bogs down this run. Editorial stepping in and just putting in bad stories, just bad ideas, just for the sake of sales. And on the sales point, Amazing Spider-Man wasn't exactly flying off the shelf, okay? Amazing Spider-Man sells because it's Spider-Man. Right. But there's no hype for it. There's no excitement. Nobody new is coming back to read it. So whatever you're doing didn't work. And it only upset the people who were reading it because what you're doing sucked.
You know what was even worse?
Yeah, what?
The worst part? Twice a month.
Yeah.
So, guess what, folks? Marvel, you are competing with other books on the shelf, because guess what? At $5 a pop, today my amount of books, and I only got a small stack, $60. You know, and guess what?
It's not that much either.
No, that's
it's
only
a small stack.
It's 10 books.
Yeah.
If that.
And again, it's just, there's a lot of people who stopped reading Spider-Man, who cut it from their pull list. And whatever they're doing now hasn't picked it up.
Well, it probably did pick up at the beginning. And some of the ideas they're doing is fun. Yeah. But as you were saying, I haven't read the current issues. Yeah. Because I've been picking
catching up. Right.
In a couple of months. Yeah. But you're saying, oh, Jim, wait until you read this. It's horrible.
It really
I want
is.
Zeb back.
I do. And that's in it. And I'll talk about that in a second, too, because moving into that, once you get past the Goblin stuff, which was, we just said, tough read there. The run finishes off with a nice Tombstone story, brings Tombstone back.
Amazing, yes.
Finishes it off, brings back Beetle, Tombstone's daughter, and finishes that story up. kind of ties everything there. Again, happy ending, that kind of stuff. A good ending for Zeb Wells.
Didn't they do a rec rap?
There was a few little mini stories at the back of that where Rec Rap basically they confirmed he was going to come back in with Joe Kelly, who's going to be the current writer. But yeah, overall 60 issues Zeb Wells, a lot of good stuff, but the good stuff's in between the lines. Yeah. The good stuff's in the side characters. The good stuff's in the filler. Yeah. And the unfortunate thing is that the filler really isn't supposed to be the memorable part of the run. No. It's just the three major arcs. 2 of the 3 were not good. Gang War had its moments, but overall was very mid.
And the miniseries too.
Yeah. The Goblin stuff, as we said, terrible. I mean, just undoing everything that was done that was good in between the lines. And again, it's editorial, screwing things up like they always do, and that's really the big takeaway of those 60 issues.
Now, the kicker is, I'm going to say is, if you liked it, awesome. We want to hear about it.
Yeah.
Write it down, down below.
If you liked it.
And tell us what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. We want to hear you tell us what you thought of that entire run of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
What would you like to see?
And because now, talking about the last 10 issues, 60 to 70 post Zeb Wells, I haven't liked it at all. What these last 4 issues have been, 65 up until now, has been Peter just, again, back to being angry and depressed. Yeah. He's like perfectly open to, like, at this point, letting people die. Like, he offs Spider-Man. He gets rid of Spider-Man. There's this moment and I think it's either 68 or 67 where, spoilers, these are recent issues if you haven't read them, where, like, the X-Men, because they bring the X-Men in, are fighting this super powerful demon guy. And like, if they lose, like, the world will end. Like, this will be it. And Peter's like, best of luck. I died. Yeah. And I hate the constant need to go back. Yeah. To have Peter learn for the millionth time.
No, I'm sick and tired of the Parker luck.
Yeah.
I wish they could throw that plot and plot device out.
And I hate the constant, like, Spider-Man has to learn what it means to be Spider-Man. Yeah. That dude's like 30. Yeah. You want to know why people love Ultimate Spider-Man, even if it's not the best? It's because Peter's actually able to be competent and to be an adult.
We don't see this with other characters. Like, your father's favorite character, Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
He's no longer moping. Oh, I gotta, change it. Blah, blah, blah. All right, I'm Ghost Rider. Let's bring on this shit. Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah.
Because he's accepted who he is. The stuff is like the Parker luck.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I think that's just a cop-out.
Yeah.
And I think it's just lame of, like, we need to cause more, character issues. No, you can still create character conflict without doing the bad luck. I would like to see them, and this is going back to JMS, he pointed out that there's all these, Peter's a spider avatar.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the return of that.
Yeah. And that ties into really what I want to see in this, just something a little different, something to shake things up in a way that is respectful to the character, respectful to what has come before, and really to shock it.
And respectful for the fans. All right. Well, thank you, Susur, for joining me today for the Ultimate Spider-Man review. It's been a long time coming. Yeah. It's deserved, and I think it was fitting. So I appreciate it. Obviously, we're not done with Spider-Man. We'll do more if you get enough likes. Click the like and subscribe. And subscribe. Ring that bell. Ring the bell and let us know what you thought. Do you also want me to come back and help with more reviews of that? Drop a comment. Let us know what you'd like to see. Thank you, Susan, once again, and we'll catch you all next time.